Well, hello again. Welcome to
2 Sides to a Coin.
I am Alicia Couri.
And I'm Cassie Couri.
And we're here to talk about everything
and nothing.
So today's topic is very timely because just today, this morning, Indiana, the Supreme Court
ruled to allow death penalty to move forward. It's the first federal execution in 17 years.
Yeah. And so we just wanted to just talk a little bit about the death penalty and life in prison, and just from our point of view, because, I mean, there are all kinds of things we can talk about, but this was because it just happened. And it was like a late night, 3 a.m. decision to allow it.
And it was a 5-4 ruling.
Yeah, it wasn't it wasn't unanimous.
Mm-hmm.
And so it still begs the question, should states still have the death penalty? Should that still be allowed? Because 28 states still have it on the books. Not that they're executing people at a clip.
Yeah, no.
But it's still a viable sentencing option for the most violent of criminals. And this person that was executed is a known white supremacist, but he claims that he is innocent of the crime. So that presents a whole new set of challenges, because I think that's what our discussion was about.
Yeah.
You know, in a case where someone is so vigorously saying that I didn't do this, I'm innocent of this, how much money, how much taxpayer dollars do we still allow to be spent on appeal after appeal after appeal when the evidence points to them having committed the crime?
Yeah. And not this case in particular,
specifically,
because we haven't looked that deeply into
we didn't look at the
case,
details of his
but
case.
Just in general, as far as executions go and death row inmates and everything, you know, a lot of them actually do maintain their innocence to their grave. And it's sort of just, where do we draw the line? How many of them do we actually keep on death row? How many do we allow additional appeals and processes? And, you know, should some of their sentences be transitioned into
commuted into life sentences instead? Because it's like $24 million in the state of Florida for one execution.
Yeah.
It's the appeals process, the money spent just in going through that process is so should the process really be that long and that exhaustive, that you're spending so much money to appeal a ruling, number one? And number two, should the death penalty even still be allowed, be a thing? And what was the third thing? I was thinking of 3 things.
Don't know.
I know you're not in this crazy here. But when do we kind of draw that line? So, for instance, if it is that the person is caught in the act, like a mass murderer, a mass shooter, someone who has really, there's no doubt that they have committed this crime, and they get sentenced to death. I believe that is really the only situation where you can for sure sentence someone to death. Yeah. Because even the 4%, because what we looked at is 4% of death row
inmates are innocent,
are actually innocent. And is 4% a tolerable threshold?
Margin of error.
Yeah. Is that a tolerable margin of error, or should it be 1%? Or, you know, I don't think it could be 0%.
Yeah.
It's just.
But how do we minimize that even further?
Or is 4% tolerable? You know, is that a tolerable margin of error? It's tolerable until it's your loved one, right? So it's tolerable until it's someone you love and you know that's been sentenced wrongfully to death for something they did not do. And we're seeing cases in appeals that have taken 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And that now that we have DNA evidence, it's proving that these people were actually innocent, being incarcerated for 30, 35 years and coming out. So I don't know that 4% is a tolerable margin of error for that. I just know that for me to sleep at night, if I were sentencing someone to death, it would have to be absolute.
Yeah.
It would have to be absolute. And God forbid I'm on a jury for any of that. I don't ever want to be on a jury in a murder, in anything like that.
Because, and in those cases where it is absolute to the jury and everyone present, how many appeals should we allow?
If it's absolute,
that person to have? Should we even allow an appeal
process? And what is the time frame are you giving for this? Because if it is absolute, the person was caught in the commission of this heinous act, whether it was directly afterwards or that they know for sure it was this it was this person that linked them to this whatever the heinous crime is that warrants the death sentence. Do you really allow an appeals process, or should the death penalty be executed, pardon the pun, swiftly, instead of them being in prison for 30 years before they actually, or 17 years or 10 years? Because again, that's eating up tax dollars. That's again spending money on all these processes when
our prison system is already stretched so thin that in cases like that where it's so absolute and this person did something to warrant the death penalty. I mean, if we're going to keep the death penalty legal, these sort of cases shouldn't linger for taking so near life sentences in order to be decided.
Then just sentence them to life.
Right,
just
exactly.
Sentence them to life with no possibility for parole. It costs less than having them appeal their death sentence. It surely does cost less to have someone sentenced for life in prison and just have them die in prison. So, and live out their lives. So I would love to hear what your position is on this, because there are people who feel that we should just abolish the death sentence altogether and it should not be even legal anymore. And there are some that feel like it's still needed. Clearly 28 states of 50 are still,
the majority still are in favor
of the death penalty. So tell us what you think. Should it be around? And if it is, should there be an appeals process for someone on death row if it's absolute? And if it's not absolute, then should it just be commuted to a life sentence?
Yeah, and also
instead of appealing,
how
do
we define absolute? Because that there are going to be some cases that are still kind of obscure, or it was proven in the moment and then something else comes up kind of last minute. So how long do we allow that period of evidence to come up? If there's any sort of question about anything, should it still go to the death penalty, or should that be removed? Yeah.
So many questions.
There's so much reform needed.
So much reform needed. We just wanted to bring up this topic as a discussion point. If anyone has any
opinions they'd like to express, even facts they'd like to share.
Yeah, even an opinion that's dissenting from ours, that's saying you two girls are wackadoo and
how dare you support the death penalty in any capacity? Oh my goodness.
Or how dare you think we should abolish the death penalty? Actually, we're on the fence on this. If you listen to the whole thing, you realize we're kind of on the fence on this. So
I personally feel that the death penalty should be reserved for acts of terror, for mass murders where the person was caught, not killed, obviously, but we know exactly who it was. So in the case of Parkland and the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas massacre, that I feel does deserve to have the death penalty looked at, just because this was a premeditated attack. They know that it was him. They have the evidence that it was him. He took 17 lives. I feel that all of those do get, like, regardless of his age, because he is an adult legally, I feel that those should allow for the death penalty to be looked at. If it was something super random, or if he was genuinely troubled and he killed like one person or something, then I'd say, we could look at mental health, rehabilitation, life in prison, stuff like that. But in the case of mass life being taken with intent.
Premeditated, with intent, yes. And definitely those are, at least that's that I kind of feel the same way as you do on that. So
yeah,
my phone was ringing. So anyway, so we were, or I can leave it in. We
might as well.
We just want to open up the dialogue for what you think about the death penalty, and what cases, what would warrant it in your opinion, or what, just what your thoughts are.
Yeah. And
just
even though this man was a white supremacist, do you believe that
he deserved
to be executed, especially in this time right now, especially with the Supreme Court voting overnight 5-4? Do you feel that that was a just decision, or do you feel that it might have been kind of rushed, maybe politically motivated? Let us know.
All right, then. That's Alicia
and Cassie
signing off for another episode of
2 Sides to a Coin.
Deuces.
See you later.